How could a woman once hailed as the seductive queen of the silver screen end up with nothing, alone and forgotten? Sharon Stone once stunned the film world into silence. But behind the glamour was a private life filled with unbelievable heartbreak. This video reveals rare, never-before-seen footage and the painful truths behind the spotlight. Before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of tea or just water, and sit back as we begin this journey together. Stories that have brought millions to tears. Born on March 10th, 1958 inches, the small town of Melville, Pennsylvania, Sharon Von Stone was the daughter of a factory worker and a strict homemaker. Her family wasn't well off. In fact, they often struggled to make ends meet. But Sharon showed remarkable intelligence from a very young age. She loved to read, studied hard, and excelled, especially in languages and the arts. With an IQ reportedly as high as 154, a number that left many in awe, Sharon was expected to become a lawyer or a college professor. Her teachers even nicknamed her the Blonde Einstein. But fate had its own plans. At just 17, Sharon entered a state-level beauty pageant, and to everyone's surprise, she won. That victory took her to New York City, where she signed with Ford Models, one of the most prestigious modeling agencies of the time. But the fashion world didn't satisfy her. Sharon quickly realized she didn't want to be in front of the camera just for her looks. She longed to act, to tell stories. In the late 70 seconds, Sharon began testing the waters in film. Her first roles were tiny, sometimes just a few seconds on screen. But she didn't give up. With striking features, an icy gaze, and unshakable determination, Sharon climbed the ranks of a cutthroat, often prejudiced Hollywood. Early in her career, she faced countless rejections, often dismissed as just a pretty face. But those very criticisms only fueled her drive to prove herself. Few could have imagined that just over a decade later, this small-town girl from humble beginnings would become one of the most powerful and controversial figures in modern film history. And this was only the beginning. Behind the spotlight, Sharon Stone's life unfolded as a long, painful saga, where marriage, love, and fame left wounds that never quite healed. Her first marriage to producer Michael Greenberg lasted only a few short years, so brief that even the media barely had time to make sense of it. Sharon once admitted in an interview, "I got married before I understood what marriage was. I just wanted to be loved." Subconsciously, she had been searching for the sense of protection she never felt growing up. In 1998, she married Phil Bronstein, the editor-in-chief of a major newspaper. For a time, it seemed like she had finally found stability, especially after the couple adopted a baby boy, Ran. But behind the happy family photos was a slow and quiet breakdown. Sharon later shared that Bronstein became emotionally distant, controlling, and cold. She wasn't even allowed to make small decisions in her own home. After the divorce, the heartbreak only deepened. She lost custody of her son. A woman once revered by the world was now just another parent, standing outside the school fence, watching her child from afar. But that wasn't the worst of it. In 2001, at the height of her fame, Sharon suffered a devastating stroke. She collapsed in her bathroom and was rushed to the hospital with a survival rate of less than 5%. For 9 days, she battled a brain hemorrhage, fighting not only to stay alive, but to hold on to her memories, her speech, and her very sense of self. Afterward, she had to relearn how to read, walk, and talk from scratch like a child. But unlike a child, she faced this journey in the crushing loneliness of a star the industry had grandfathered. It was a trauma that haunted her for life, one that left her believing she didn't deserve love or happiness. And as if that pain weren't enough, she spoke of how, after her stroke, nearly all her friends in the industry disappeared. No calls, no film offers, no spotlight. She lost her fame, her fortune, and her place in the very world that once worshipped her like a goddess. Though the world came to know her as a cold, powerful, and captivating movie star, few realized that from the time she was a little girl in Pennsylvania, Sharon Stone never truly felt the warmth of a real family. Her deepest pain didn't come from strangers in Hollywood, but from her own flesh and blood, the very people who should have been her safest place in the world. In rare candid interviews, Sharon has opened up about her traumatic childhood. She was amused, but did nothing. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a wound that never healed. Sharon said she grew up feeling like no one believed me. No one protected me, and no one really cared about how I felt. Her father was a strict blue-collar man, who rarely showed affection. The coldness in their home wasn't just in their actions, it was in the air itself. A heavy silence that every child could feel, but none dared to break. In her family, being strong was a requirement, but no one ever taught her how to love, how to trust, or how to feel safe. As Sharon began to rise to fame, her family didn't fully support her. Some relatives only came around after she became successful, as if to claim a share of her spotlight. She once described the emptiness she felt returning to her hometown. "I felt like a stranger in the very house I grew up in." Some of her siblings eventually cut ties completely, or maintained only distant surface-level contact, even during her darkest hours, like after her life-threatening stroke in 2001. Her family was noticeably absent. No phone calls, no words of comfort. She recovered alone, fought alone, and ultimately accepted a hard truth that some blood ties will never be true family. And yet, perhaps it was this very lack of familial love that forged Sharon's incredible resilience. She stopped seeking approval from the people who were never truly there for her. Instead, she built her own family, one filled with unconditional love and deep connection. With her 3 adopted sons, Sharon redefined what family meant on her own terms, the way she had always dreamed of since she was a little girl. After all the storms she's weathered, Sharon Stone is no longer the red carpet queen, no longer the sex symbol who once set the screen on fire in the 9 seconds. But perhaps for the first time in her life, she's finally living as her true self. No more playing a role. No more proving anything to anyone. At 66, Sharon has chosen a quiet, meaningful life, surrounded by her 3 sons whom she's raised on her own. In her cozy Beverly Hills home, once a place of healing after her stroke, there is now laughter, love, and life. She still devotes herself to the arts, but in a different way. No longer chasing glamorous roles, she now selects projects with depth and humanity, stories that reflect what she's lived through. She's also become a painter, using art as a way to cleanse the soul. Her paintings have been exhibited and auctioned to raise money for charity. On social media, she shows up simply, no makeup, no filters, unafraid to speak about aging, health, and the hard-earned lessons of life. The woman who once lived in Hollywood's brightest lights now chooses a light that comes from within, the glow of peace, of a heart that's learned to forgive and finally feels whole. She no longer longs for love the way she once did in her youth. But ironically, that's when love quietly comes knocking. Many men still admire her, not for the fame, but for the depth, wisdom, and quiet strength that now shines through her eyes. As Sharon once said, "I don't need someone to complete my life. I've built a whole world on my own." There are people who are born to shine on stage, but there are also those like Sharon Stone who shine the brightest when everything seems broken. She was once the dream of millions of men around the world. A glance, a subtle look. That alone could send American and European media into a frenzy. Basic Instinct in 1992 wasn't just a movie, it was a symbol. And Sharon was the very centre of that symbol. But what the public didn't see was that behind that symbol was a woman worn down by a loveless childhood, by unhappy marriages, and by an industry where love and loyalty always come after profit. Sharon was once betrayed by her own flesh and blood. Growing up in a house that never felt like a home, she carried childhood wounds, things no one should ever have to experience, let alone a child. And as an adult stepping into the glamorous world of Hollywood, she kept falling for sweet promises, only to pay for them in tears. She once loved, once married, once believed she could build a family, but both marriages ended quietly, and the deepest wound came when she lost custody of her son. Ran, the boy she once held close with all the tenderness of a mother discovering unconditional love for the first time. Then came the stroke, a storm no one saw coming. When she lay in that hospital bed, unable to speak, unable to remember, even forgetting who she was, no one came. No word from Hollywood, no colleagues by her side. The woman who once stopped red carpets in their tracks now lay silently in a white, sterile room with only the sound of machines to keep her company. But from that rock bottom, Sharon chose to keep going quietly, without the need for a comeback. She lives simply now, raising 3 sons, children she calls the only ones who chose me. Not because I'm Sharon Stone. She paints, gives to charity, and shares her true story as a message to those still lost in the dark. That there is light. If you don't give up, if you're still reading, maybe you feel it too. This story isn't just about Sharon. It's about all of us. Those who've dreamed, who've hurt, and who are still trying to find a way to keep going. Hit subscribe if you want to keep following powerful stories like this. And maybe after all, what we need isn't another movie star, but someone brave enough to live their truth and tell it.